Michelle Marie McGrath.
Welcome to Unclassified Woman, and today I'm pleased to be talking to Dr. Chloe Peacock in the UK. Born and raised in beautiful West Sussex, a former university lecturer with a PhD on consumer brand participation, Chloe is an experienced commercial research consultant and an expert in semiotics. When she's not working, she's busy travelling with a passion for beaches, surf and Southeast Asia. At home in the UK, she loves spending time outdoors in the countryside and is a fan of all creatures great and small. Chloe is also the founder of the UK lifestyle network for childfree women, the League of Fabulous Women. The League hopes to gently shift and soften cultural perceptions of women without children and, most importantly, to help women who are child-free, whatever their reason, to connect with each other and make new friends through social meetups. You can find out more about the League of Fabulous Women and Chloe's work at www.tlfw.co.uk. And I found this a really interesting conversation with Chloe, and we talked about ambivalence, which is a huge topic for so many women, and also the various cultural perceptions that she's hoping the League will influence and change in time. So very interesting. I do hope you enjoy. Thank you. So hi, Chloe. So great to be having you here today.
Hello, Michelle. It's lovely to speak to you.
Fantastic. So all the way over in Brighton there, one of my favourite places in the UK.
Yeah, it's absolutely lovely here, although a little bit windy, wet and windy this morning.
Well, it's actually the same here in Sydney at the moment. So there you go. And this is summer. So Chloe, just to start off our conversation and just to give us some context, would you tell us a little bit about your background and whether you've not had a child due to personal choice or through circumstances?
Yeah, sure. Well, personally speaking, I think I have always been ambivalent about wanting to become a mother. And it's one of those things, I don't think I would describe myself in precise terms, such as child-free by circumstance or by choice. I've been in a very long-term relationship since my late teens, actually. I mean, not the same relationship, but so I've been in a position with a sort of supportive partner where, we could have had children. But I should probably say that I turned 40 this year. So, that is an issue. But I am, however, very comfortable with my ambivalence towards motherhood. And the idea that at, my age, I am coming towards, the end of my biological choice. Yeah, I still don't feel any great urge to know the exact status of my fertility or like some friends my age who are starting to think about exploring IVF. And I don't really feel any problem with the idea now that, it's highly unlikely that I'll become a mother. I certainly sort of have no plans to, go it alone or anything like that. But I'm at a point in my life where I've never felt more confident in my sense of self. And who I am and kind of living my life as it is in the present moment. So I think that whole conversation about ambivalence and being child-free is very interesting and something that we talk a lot about women being child-free by circumstance or by choice, but I think there's this whole group of women who are just not sure. And I consider myself one of those, really. But, obviously, age 40, that is going to shift.
Yeah, and I mean, you're so right. Ambivalence is such a fascinating topic. And I, from being a child, was never 100% sure that that's what I wanted or whether I'd have children. And I think often if we're not talking to other people about it, because that's not really the norm to be discussing, I actually, for a while, used to think maybe there's just something wrong with me because we're fed all of these stereotypes about how, it's natural in inverted
Yeah.
commas and that biological urge and all of these urban myths that we're used to hearing in our society. So if you don't fit into that or feel like that, you can think, well, is it just me? Do other people feel like this? When in actual fact, there are a huge number of women who feel exactly like that I know now from so many conversations that I've had in the last couple of years. So many women have said, I've never had that whole biological clock ticking thing. And I'm like, neither have
Yeah.
I. I've never had that feeling. Whereas I know some women, it's a very physical and emotional experience where they do have that urge. So
Yeah.
it's a really interesting topic, but obviously we're conditioned to believe that is, I want to say again in inverted commas, natural and normal. And, and of course
Yeah.
it is if that's the
Absolutely. Yeah.
experience you're having.
Yeah. Yes. No, I mean, I completely agree with you. But I think there is room out there for a discussion about ambivalence. And that, ambivalence isn't bad, that it's an experience that speaks to a lot of women. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you're missing something or, kind of missing the nurturing gene, that that you can still be a caring person, a nurturing person. You may like children, you may have children in your life.
Yeah.
It's just not for you. But something that you said a moment ago that really resonated with me, that my experience as a young woman certainly was I never had that kind of dream of I never sort of visualized myself with children and having a family, but at the same time I've always been kind of open to it, perhaps.
Yes.
If it happened and it hasn't. So but I personally speaking, I have no problem with that.
Exactly. And I wonder if part of that is because you do feel fulfilled and content with yourself and your life. So, like you say, you don't feel that there's this big gaping hole and that a child would fill that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of it, again, personally speaking, is to do with where I am in my life and how I feel about myself, and the relationship that I have with myself. But I think it sort of makes me think of something that a lady called Claire Fox, that I know, said the other day, that I think there's this idea, if you haven't had a child at a certain point in your life, you're missing out on a big human relationship. And obviously it's one of life's sort of most important and intimate relationships, just like falling in love is. And there's sort of so many references in literature and popular culture about the love of parents with their child, or mother and child. And I do understand that. I completely get it. But, and this is something, this is quoting Claire, there are all sorts of things that life can't offer everyone.
Yeah.
And how can a person say, how could you live your life without climbing Mount Everest or traveling the world? I mean, that would just be ridiculous to sort of see that or perceive somebody as lesser because they haven't had that particular big experiences. And I think the point I'm trying to make really is that there are huge experiences we don't all have. And
absolutely. And many different types of peak experiences, like you say.
Yeah. And I think as part of our kind of sense of who we are, we have to come to terms with that as people, not just women, but also, men as well, that, there are huge experiences we don't all have, and it's okay. And personally, I'm quite comfortable with the fact that I don't have a child.
Yeah, and it's interesting, that whole rhetoric that we hear of it's you'll never experience love like the love for your child and all that. Again, it's one of those very intense experiences. But I was talking about this to Christine Erickson, who does a lot of work with women with horses in different retreats around the world. And she wrote the book, The Mother Within, which is a really great book.
Yeah.
And one of the things that she says, which I really resonated with and I really like, is your deepest experience of love is your deepest experience of love. Now, that can't be measured by anyone else's experience. It's all of these experiences that we have are so personal. How can we say what one person is experiencing with their relationship with their partner is not as deep or meaningful as somebody else's relationship with their child? And it's just immeasurable.
Absolutely. I mean, I couldn't agree more with you on that.
So it's so interesting. So again, it's that need to really just be more tolerant and compassionate and non-judgmental in being open and supportive to everyone's life experience is completely different, whether they're mothers or not. And, these sorts of narrow-minded beliefs and stereotypes, this is what causes all problems, all conflict really between different groups of people, where it just doesn't need to be the case really. It's so outdated, a lot of this stuff. And so I found it really interesting. You were saying that you've had this ambivalence. So have you always had that? You've always had that knowing that it wasn't something you had to try to make happen. Did you ever have any times in your life where you questioned that, even if it was just like short term?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, that's a fairly kind of normal experience for a lot of women who are ambivalent about having children. I mean, my experience was that in my late teens and early 20s, having kids was not on my radar at all. And I think that is a lot to do with my upbringing and the culture and society, which I grew up in. My mother had her children very young.
Yeah.
And she was very keen for myself and my sister to kind of go forth and experience a lot of the things that she was unable to as a young woman because she was bringing us up. So education was very important. I was encouraged to travel. And I was sort of a young woman at a time where, birth control was, sort of very common and accepted. And, it was sort of almost kind of don't get pregnant.
Yeah.
Do this, take this path. And actually, I needed very little persuading. I was sort of quite ambitious for myself, I think. And I didn't see having a child as part of that ambition. In my early to mid 30s, I did consider kind of fertility window, if you like. And, I was in a long-term relationship with somebody who, did want to become a father at that point in my life. And so it was something that I had to consider very, very carefully. And I think that, the kind of pull to become a mum just wasn't there for me. I stand by those decisions. Personally, I have no regrets about that.
And so did you ever, because you said that your partner at the time, he was quite interested in quite keen to become a father. And did you feel pressure from any of your friends or, anyone else around you?
Yes. I mean, I think this is something that a lot of child-free women have to deal with. I mean, even now I still get, but you'd make such a great mum, and, you're such a caring person. And I love children. I have a very close relationship with my niece. I have one of my friend's daughters that I look after sort of once a month. She comes over, I pick her up from school. So, I think I have friends or people in my life kind of seeing that side of me. And, there's also this issue of legacy as well. Yeah. So I think it's been a very great sadness for my father in particular at certain points in his life. And it's something that we've had very open conversations about in our family. He is a grandfather. I'm very lucky. I have a huge kind of extended family and lots of stepbrothers and sisters and a half sister, and so there are lots of kids in my life. And my father has had that experience. He has grandchildren, but I think considering making the decision to become a mum or not, other people, of course, do come into it, but ultimately you have to follow your own path.
Absolutely. And so, because obviously I'm really interested in, you set up the League of Fabulous Women in the UK. Yeah. So how did that come about, Chloe, from you having these realisations about yourself to then setting up this friendship network of similar women?
Well, it started as something quite small a couple of years ago. That was sort of the product of my own experience. So I was at a time in my life where a handful of my very close female friends all became pregnant at the same time. One of my older sisters, who I'm very close to, had recently become a mum, and there was this very dramatic shift in my social life. It was as simple as that. So I found that, the women that I would normally hang out with, it became sort of much harder and much more complicated simply just to get together. And I still, I've maintained wonderful friendships with these women and I love their kids, but, there's no kind of beating around the bush. Our relationships changed. Yeah. And I felt at one point in my life, am I the only woman my age without kids? It seemed everybody had children. And then there was this sort of wonderful moment of serendipity, if you like, where I was sort of sat at home on a Sunday reading the Sunday supplements in one of the UK broadsheets. And I read an article about the marketing demographic, PANCS, which is professional no kids, which Melanie Notkin is sort of great trailblazer over in the States, and how it was becoming a growing demographic from a kind of commercial point of view. And it just got me thinking, I thought, this must be happening over here. Where are these women? I cannot be the only one. Set up. So I immediately sort of flipped open my laptop and went and had a look in Meetup. And I couldn't find anything near me that really spoke to me. I mean, there were some child-free groups, but they were for people and couples who had kind of made that life choice, who were very sure and were leading a kind of specific lifestyle. So I set this group up in Brighton, where I live, and it was just amazing to me. Sort of the first meetup, there was 4 of us. By the second month, 50 women had joined.
Oh my goodness!
By the sort of end of the year, there were over 100, and we've been going a couple of years in Brighton, and there's now nearly 500 women. So that's how it started. But about 5 months ago, just sort of based on emails that I'd received or people that I kind of told about the group who were from other places, it was sort of, wow, this is such a good idea. I decided to create a website that would be a sort of central hub And the meetup groups have now started in London, Manchester, and Bristol. So we're kind of spreading out a bit. But what is so fantastic about the League of Fabulous Women is it's just about friendship. So we don't really discuss the reasons why we don't have children, whether we're child-free by choice or circumstance. That's, we don't sort of sit around.
Yeah, discussing it endlessly.
Because I think what I found certainly with my friends was that, as well as a kind of shift of focus from us onto the kids, a lot of the conversation would be about kids, and how the kids were doing. They also had this amazing new network of friends where they'd be going to antenatal or swimming club for toddlers, whatever, and meeting all sorts of wonderful women and making new friendships.
Yeah.
So at certain points in your life, like when you're at school or if you go to university, you make new friends. And I think as we get older, we kind of lose that a little bit. And it seems a bit strange to kind of, approach somebody at a party and say, I like you. Do you want to be my friend? That's kind of a bit odd. But there's a whole group, whole demographic here in the UK, certainly, where it's like, do you know what? I just want to meet some new friends. And what's nice about the League of Fabulous Women is that we are kind of connected by the fact that our experience doesn't involve motherhood. So we have that in common, but actually the groups involve all sorts of women from very different backgrounds, very different experiences. And we're just there, for each other. And it's just been wonderful because obviously I've made loads of new friends, which is great. But I've also seen these sort of beautiful friendships blossom where, to give one example, in Brighton, two women who sort of live around the corner from each other didn't actually know each other existed. And they're both single at the moment. And they're just about to go on a skiing holiday together.
Oh, lovely. Yeah.
And also, we've had women who've gone through, the sort of very great sadness of failed IVF, and they've connected that way. That's something that's come up for them, and they've kind of formed a friendship outside of perhaps separate fertility support groups that they've been going to, and they're sort of best buds now. So yeah, it's really wonderful.
Fantastic. And so what are your plans for the future for the network? I mean, how do you see it? Because it sounds like it's growing quite quickly and it's a demographic that's only going to increase. As we know, there's already like 25% of women over 40 don't have children, and like that figure's doubled, hasn't it, in about the last 10 years. So this is only going to increase, isn't it, over the next few years?
Yes, absolutely. I still feel a little bit taken back about how popular it is, and the website has only been live 5 months. And we are getting a lot of visitors, and the people that are coming to the website seem really quite engaged with it, which is nice. And I think one of the things that I've tried to do with the website is really sort of offer a kind of an idea that women without kids is something that the idea or the cultural perception of women without children needs to be shifted. And I think,
yes,
on the website, all the women that you see on the website are members of the meetup groups. We've got lots of lovely photographs and articles written by the women about, just about interesting stuff that they're doing and things that they think about. And trying to sort of put forward this idea that these women, are valuable, they're feminine, and really sort of just very quietly shift perceptions around the child-free being somehow less natural or less feminine. I think that's really important.
It really is, because you're no less feminine whether you're a mother or not. But that's again something that is ingrained in our culture and society, unfortunately, because we're sold that from a very young age
Yes.
through, Disney and Hollywood and just even through the way we're educated, all of this. So that is very deeply rooted on a subconscious level. That if not, that drive to be a wife and mother should be part of the central driving force of your life. And if it's not that, then why? So, but
Yes.
again, a lot of these things, even if they're not said openly to you, it can be inferred
Yeah.
a lot, even from your own family and friends. And so I think that is so powerful and important, that message about how not being less than a woman and being as equally feminine.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And I think, I suppose from a, a marketing point of view, even, it's been recognised in America, particularly, that this is an important demographic and it's a growing demographic. And I think we're kind of getting our heads around that in the UK. It's still something that brands need to get on board with. But I still think part of that is to do with how people perceive and sort of revere motherhood as the ultimate female experience. And there is still so much cultural mythology around motherhood being the only natural calling for women. And part of the mission, if you like, of the League of Fabulous Women is to say, no, here we are. Look at these women, and look, us. This is who we are, and we are, we are happy, and
absolutely, and fulfilled and complete, and finding meaning in all sorts of different ways, and also providing often very valuable input into society. And one of the meanings of the verb to mother is to produce. And of course, we're all creating and producing in different ways all the time. So what would you say that you enjoy producing?
I have experienced the very great privilege of education. So I have a PhD. And I've had the experience of working on a thesis and writing a thesis. So, as anybody who's done one knows, it's a real roller coaster. But so I feel that I have, in terms of kind of legacy issues, I suppose. I have done that, and I have made a contribution to knowledge, if you like. But that is very, very self-referential. But I feel that I'm involved in creating relationships all the time, and there's something very creative about that.
Yes.
I also get to be very creative in my work. So I'm a researcher, and that keeps my brain very active. But I think ultimately for me, the reward of friendship is incredible, and that there is something very creative about that, not in the traditional sense. In terms of sort of painting pictures or composing music, but my brain is kept very active and engaged in a creative way. So I feel very blessed.
Yeah, and you are experiencing, like you say, and facilitating connection with so many people and in so many different ways. So that's very fulfilling.
Yeah, definitely. And I think I have to work hard to keep in touch with the gratitude, that kind of attitude of gratitude. But it's good. It's when somebody like yourself asks me that question, it does make me stop and think. And I am incredibly grateful for my life.
And so what do you feel, Chloe, are the major benefits that you are experiencing through not having the responsibility of having children?
That's an interesting question as well. There are benefits, and I think there's a little bit of a taboo around sort of saying out loud, in mixed company, if you like. There's some good stuff about not having kids, and my own experience is I do have a sense of freedom in my life that I know, my sister, for instance, or some of my friends just don't have anymore. And I know they would not swap their experience of motherhood for anything. But, again, it's that whole idea of gratitude. I am very grateful that, I'm off taking my work with me for the whole of January to Costa Rica.
It's a hard life.
Going to go and surf for a month.
Fantastic.
Do that. Perhaps I could, but it's much easier for me, let's say. So I think I have a sense of ease, and that,
that your time's your own.
And I am the author, very much the author of my own life. So I don't have that sense of responsibility necessarily towards my kind of the people that I'm close to that I would have if I was a parent. And I think the flip side of that is that perhaps somebody else might say that I'm very selfish, but I don't think there's anything wrong with pleasing yourself.
The more fulfilled and happy you are, the more you've actually got to give and share with others. That's the thing, coming from a very balanced space.
Yeah, exactly.
But then again, often that's something that we're only coming more and more to terms with as women, in feeling more comfortable about talking about that, because we are, again, natural givers. And so I think that's something that we're going through a shift with culturally as well, much more in the last few years. And I know, with my own work, which is working with people, very self-love focused. And also that's to do with a lot of self-responsibility and not looking to everyone else or looking externally to have your needs met all the time. So it's really, if you're fulfilling yourself and you're making yourself happy and you're giving yourself what you need, then you're actually in a much healthier state.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is a fascinating area. I mean, this is a whole other podcast.
Yeah,
I think.
Totally.
The idea of kind of self-love and kind of parenting yourself almost.
Totally. I mean, that's a lifelong journey in itself. So
yeah, and I mean, I don't know about in Australia, but certainly in the UK, there is a bit of a culture of criticism, and somebody who sort of announces I'm okay, I'm happy, or I'm doing this for myself, isn't necessarily greeted with a kind of smile and a good for you. It's
but I think it's still because there's a lot of misunderstanding around the meaning for that, and when people often are just looking at it at a very surface level. But I suppose I see, self-love more in terms of self-responsibility, and only I am responsible for my happiness and well-being, and nobody else can do that for me, So it's interesting. It's that, I mean, I see it as really part of growing up, if you like. And becoming an adult and realising that, hey, the buck stops with you in terms of being responsible for your own life. So it's interesting, isn't it? All these different cultural taboos that we're faced with. I mean, it is fascinating.
Yeah. And I mean, you mentioned responsibility. I think that one of the kind of charges towards women who are child-free, whether by circumstance or by choice, is that somehow they're kind of not responsible adults either, or emotionally developed. And actually, I think the point that I was making about having a sense of freedom is, I think it's much easier to have a sense of responsibility towards yourself, or certainly that's my experience anyway. But I do think that women who haven't had children for whatever reason have kind of been perhaps perceived to be somehow not emotionally as responsible as a mother.
Yeah, absolutely. No, it's fascinating topic. But thank you so much, Chloe. It's been so great to speak to you. And so, where can we find you online?
So the website for the League of Fabulous Women you can find at www.tlfw.co.uk. So that's TLFW for the League of Fabulous Women. And our meetups, which are in Brighton, Bristol, Manchester and London, you can find through the meetup. So there's sort of various ways that you can connect with us, and we're all over social media. So yeah, we've got a Facebook group and we're on Twitter, and our doors are wide open. We'd love to hear from more women.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Michelle. It's been really interesting. I've really loved talking to you.
Thank you for listening to Unclassified Woman. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe. For information on events and services, connect with Michelle at michellemariemcgrath.com.